welcome you all in the course Systematics of Angiosperm. As sir previously have told you about the introduction of herbarium and how to prepare the herbarium, its different techniques of preparation by the collection, pressing, drying and how to filing the herbarium. These things are already told by the sir, and they also have previously briefed you about the functions of herbarium. Today we will study the detailed functions and importance of herbarium specimens.
Dear participants, welcome you again in this course Systematics of Angiosperm. Earlier you have studied the herbarium and its techniques, that is explained you by the Professor M.B. Siddiqui sir. So today we will going to study the important functions and importance of herbarium specimens. And you have already aware what is the herbarium and how it is prepared. So just a quickly revision of the what is herbarium, and then we will study the important functions and the importance of the herbarium in the taxonomy as well as the other field of the botany and other sciences. So you have already studied the herbarium is a repository of a collection of preserved plant specimen and the associated data used for the scientific study. And these specimens may include the dried and pressed plant mounted on the sheet, stored in either in the boxes or in case of cones, or they may be maintained in the other formats like the digital databases. So these herbarium are the critical tool in various botanical disciplines acting as a libraries of biodiversity. And today we will study the herbaria that is the institutionally globally with prominent examples like the herbarium of the Royal Botanical Gardens, Kews, and National Herbarium of India and Botanical Survey of India. So these herbarium like the Royal Botanical Gardens and the National Herbarium of India, Botanical Survey of India, they all are maintaining the herbariums. And these herbariums are playing a very important roles like the herbaria. Today we will going to explore the functions of herbarium and their importance. And in this particularly the some institute like the Royal Botanical Garden worldwide globally and the National Herbarium of India and Botanical Survey of India playing a very important role, especially in BSI and the National Herbarium in India playing very important role in the preserving the documentation of the plant species. And these species, documented plant species are used in many number of ways. So what are the function that is performed by the herbarium? So let's start with the functions that we can done by the herbarium. So we know that the herbarium is an invaluable conservatory of the plant material and data. So all that data that is stored in herbarium from very beginning, as we know that the herbarium started from the 15th century. So from that time, this repository they are storing the plant material. So they also representing the history or vegetation type of that particular regions. And as you know, this is an invaluable conservatory and is a storehouse of a collection including the valuable type specimens like herbaria that is a greatly aided all kind of a taxonomic researches. So they have a number of a collection of the plants and which is used for the taxonomic researches. Then they are served as a fundamental resource for the identification of all the plants of the world, in which the BSI is playing a very important role in India and the worldwide the Botanical Garden plays very important role in the identification. Because suppose we are going to study on research on this particular any particular plant. So first of all, we have to identify it, and this particular work is done by these herbarium institutes. Either it is a BSI or these are the regional centers. First of all, if we have selected particular plant for our research or we are going to use any particular plant, so this identification is very important. So all the plant that is uh, we have identified just because their specimens is already present or stored in this particular herbariums. So in identification, the herbarium plays a very important role. Then the next, it is serve as a source of a collection of biodiversity because herbarium is a collection of the plant dried specimens. Suppose, as we have already, you have seen that the herbarium is present in the regional, local level, universities level, and national level as well as at the international level. So all these particular level wise, they all are storing a different types of biodiversity. Suppose at the university level, that university is maintaining the herbarium of their own regions. So all the plant that is available in the, suppose we are studying in Aligarh. So the herb that present in the Aligarh, that is storing all the plant material that present in the herbarium in the form of a preserved material, dried material. So suppose we would like to study a specific plant and it is not available at that time in the nature. So we can easily study from the that collection of the herbarium. So this is also used for the research as well as it is documenting the biodiversity of that particular regions. Either it is a local level, and there are many centers of a BSI, like these circles are maintaining the herbaria of every region wise. So they are the collection of biodiversity. We can also predict the biodiversity of that particular regions, local or regional level, due to the presence of their herbarium collections. So we can just assess the biodiversity of that particular region by the seeing the herbarium. We don't need to go to the outside to check the plant species, because these herbarium was collected and prepared by the these regions by the experts, and they are documenting the species of that particular area. So these are the collection of the biodiversity. And beside this, they are also help in the monitoring the biodiversity, because herbariums are, they are the secured and preserved in a particular basis. So the many species biodiversity monitoring by collection, we can also set a baseline which particular species needed a particular attention. So we can see that the biodiversity is of this particular species, we have to now, this species is became endangered, or so we, in this way we can see monitor the species by the this collection of the herbarium. Then, if we see the herbarium, in herbarium, there's a number of voucher specimens is also present, and these voucher specimens are used in the number of varieties of botanical research which is carried out. So, when a person is going to collect a herbarium collection for the preparation of the herbarium, they have also collected the voucher specimens that may be in future used for the botanical research is to be carried out. Then in the particularly, they also telling the conservation is to the particular taxon. When we go out the for the collection of the herbarium, we can get the idea of which species, the status of the particular species, and what are the changes that made in this particular species type. So it is also tells about the collection and conservation status of particular taxon in that particular regions, and that help in the planning of the different conservation strategies for that particular taxon. Then, if we see the vast collection of particular species in a herbarium aids in the assessing the diversity or variation that exhibited by a species in distribution ranges, that helping in the population biological studies. So if you see the herbarium, that is the assessing the diversity, is also exhibited the species and its distribution ranges that help us with the population biological studies. Because if you see, if you're going for the collection, some species are have a some point at their point, they have a some population at some particular specific areas, so we can collect and access the diversity of that population, and we can study the population biology of that species and from that particular regions. Then it is also serve as a source for the research of new genetic material for the improvement of cultivated stock. Then the tags of herbarium carry all the information about the habitat, habit, local name, flower, color, and other characteristic of the plants. And that is used plant frequency and abundance of species, etc. So it also includes the morphological distribution, range of distribution, variation, and uses. It is very important for providing the botanical, ethnobotanical, and phytogeographical studies of that particular plants. So these field book which we carry to the when we're going for the collection of plant, that information is very important for the ethnobotanical, phytogeographical, and botanical studies in later also. So field book is very important. We are going for the collection, that is report the many important data from the collection. Then herbarium also serve as an aid in the teaching botany, because dried specimens are available all the time compared to the fresh plant which may be not available. Suppose a particular family, that is we have a semester system. So in the semester system, one of the drawbacks is that suppose we are studying a particular families in the spring season or either in the winter or maybe in the summer season. So every plant have a specific flowering time. Suppose in this there is a winter season is coming. So all the families that is flower in a summer season is not available in that particular winter season. So in this semester we have to teach, we can teach them these student bird families which is flower in the summer by the help of these herbarium or dried specimens. So this is also very helpful in the teaching botany and other field also like the biodiversity and conservation strategies. Then specimens may be used as a source of a material for the anatomy, palynology, cytotaxonomy, ecology, chemistry, molecular, pharmacogony, environmental impact assessments. So these is specimen which we have collected also used within a number of studies we can use for this. Then we all know in the herbarium sheet, when we be going for the collection, we have to collect the whole plant, either if it is in the herbaceous state, or in the case of a large plant, we have to collect the twig with vegetative as well as the reproductive parts. So when we collected a plant with its seeds, so these seeds are also stored in the form of a herbarium sheet with the in packet. So we can suppose due to the any calamities, that particular plant which we have collected earlier in 100 years, suppose ago, because some herbariums are 100 or 200 years or some other major old herbarium that is 400 times old. So we have collected a certain plant from earlier 100 years ago, and we have also collected the seeds in the form of a packet. And due to the any reason, that particular plants are now missing from the wild, so we can use the modern technology to grow that plant by the seeds we already present in the form of a herbarium specimens. So this help in the resurrection of the particular plant species. Then it is also aids in the assessment of a cataloging the all the species that is economically potential, such as a commercial species, medicinal herbs, and food plants. Because as you know, the herbarium that is also stored as a stored by the particular filing is done by the some accepted system of a classification. But there's a sections in the herbarium house maybe, because many herbarium are dedicated to the some important like economically value plants, like industrially important plants or ecologically important plants. So these plant we can separate in the herbarium sections. So these are also help in the cataloging the regional economic value. Suppose if certain particular regions are very economically important because they are producing that region producing plants that are very economically important. So all the regions have a different types of categories of herbarium sections in which we can catalog the different economically important plants in the herbarium. Then the next is also help in the development of computer database on the plants and maintain the active link to the international network of the systematic resource on an electronic basis. So the most important thing in today's time is all the things are available online, because now most of the largest herbarium are now become digitized. So this is we can easily on one click we can get the information of any plant that present in this particular herbarium, because now you can already study that the now virtual herbarium. Virtual herbarium means because first suppose we would like to study a certain plant that present in that particular herbarium, so we have to go there, visit there, and then we can able to as first we have to carry out the some formalities for that studying that particular plant species. But now due to the presence of these international electronic databases, just on one click we can get all the information of that particular plant in the form of a virtual herbarium. So we have to just, and these virtual herbarium they also have a some like you can directly contact with the person that has collected them. They also have a contact numbers of that persons who that particular plant is collected by that one. So you can easily reach out the person plant, you can all see the all the characteristics. So today the networking is international networking. The data is very important, and we can easily access any plant from any time from any place. This is very important in this today's world because time is very important, and it is also saving our time as well as money, because physically we have to go there. Suppose we have to go the Queens, England. So there's a lot of formalities for that. But now today we can easily access all the material through the virtual herbarium. So this is also playing a very important role in the database management because of the digitization of these herbarium sheets. So there's a number of functions which is performed by the herbarium, in which mostly the main function is that is act as a teaching aid, it is help in the identification, then it is work in the research specimen. This is also used in the resurrection of the plant. It can maintain the biodiversity. We can we can make the we can also prepare the conservation strategies for certain plant which is now become extinct in the wild. So there are some number of uses of the herbarium seeds we can use as a we can done by these particular herbariums. So that's why these are the herbariums have a very number of importance. So these are the functions, and if you see the importance, so these herbarium has a number of importance, and with the most important one is the biodiversity documentation. Like taxonomic reference, they also act as a taxonomic reference, like herbarium act as a permanent record of a plant species and providing a repository for the taxonomic studies. Then it is also used in the conservation planning by maintaining the records of rare, endangered, and endemic species. Herbaria help in the conservation efforts. Like in India, that Botanical Survey of India is providing the all these records to the governments of India. So then this is also monitoring the flora changes that document the geographical and temporal distribution of plant species, that allows the scientists to track the environmental changes and habitat losses in this particular uh, regions. Then the next importance of the herbarium is the research and education, because this also help in the systematic studies, like botanists rely on the herbarium specimen for studying the plant taxonomy, evolution, and phylogeny. Then it is also serve as a teaching aid, as I have told, the universities use herbarium collection to teach plant identification and taxonomy to the students. Then they also use in the comparative studies, like a specimen provide a comparative reference for the researchers working on new plant species. Then the next most important part of the herbarium is the identification and authentication, like medicinal plants. Herbaria help in the authentication of medicinal plants that used in the traditional and modern medicine. Because many plants, suppose we are studying, you have studied already, you will study the families. Many plants may have a same characteristics. So if you have a need a particular desired type of a plant and they have a same characteristics, so you have to particularly identify that particular plant, because you cannot use another plant. So identification of the particular plant is very important for the medicinal use. Suppose we have selected a wrong plant, so it may have a negative impact on the some other persons. So economic part in the industries like pharmaceutical, agriculture, that rely on the herbarium aspect to identify the useful plants. So this is a very important in the identification and authentication of the plant that plays by the herbarium. Then herbarium also have a cultural and historical significance. Like many plants are collected by the explorers and botanists over centuries. Like many of the collections, that is the historical importance, like the Decandole collection, they are also now called as a historical record. These offering insight into the past ecosystem, and these are also part of the historical records. Then type specimens, like type specimens is a reference for the original description of a species, like, and herbaria is a safeguard of this type of a critical specimen which to get in the earlier state. Then these herbarium also play a role in the climate change studies, because herbarium specimens provide data on the flowering and fruiting time, which are valuable for studying the phenological shift due to the climate change. Because as I have told you, the field notebook have all the information. And suppose there's a shift, we can already study this by the by the herbarium sheets. And the specimen which is reveal past distribution of the plants, that offering insight into the how species adapt to the environmental changes is very important, and that also present on the herbarium sheets. So the next important, as we've already discussed, the digitization and the modern application. Now herbarium become the virtual. There is a many herbaria digitized collection, making them accessible to researchers worldwide, which is one of the important steps which is taken by the number of the institute. So it is very important step, and we can access directly to these herbarium specimens. And next is the barcoding and genomics. And the DNA extracted from the herbarium specimens contribute to the genetic studies and species identification of that particular plant, because it is not easily some plant which is not available or extinct in the wild. So we can listen to the DNA extraction and can study why this particular plant become extinct in the wild. So this is possible just because this plant are already stored in the form of a herbarium. So these are some importance of the herbarium. The next one is the global and regional importance. As we have discussed that the institution like the Smithson and Kew play a key role in the global plant research and conservation, because now they all are become the virtual, and they're providing a number of researchers and help them to identify a particular plant. And in this, India's contribution, the Botanical Survey of India has documenting India's flora, and they play a very important role. Beside this, they have also collaboration with the international effort, like the Botanical Survey of India also have a collaboration with the Royal Botanical Garden of Kew. So they play a very important role in the research, and they are also connecting with each other for the betterment of the our society, and they also conserve the species, and they are planning the strategies for the future. And in this, some important herbaria of the world, as we know, the largest number of herbaria is stored in the, that is the Hebel laboratory of the phonetic cryptogram in the, that is present in the Museum National the History, that has the largest number of herbarium specimen. In this, the next is has the Royal Botanical Garden. These list is already told by the sir. So these are the some important herbarium of the world with acronyms. As you can see here, this one is the largest herbarium, that is the Museum National the Herbarium in the Paris. You can see these are the herbarium. Then the next one is the Royal Botanical Garden in Kew, then Royal Botanical Garden in Edinburgh, Scotland. So these are the some important herbarium of the world, in which the Central National Herbarium, that is the with acronym CAP, present in the Howrah, which has the around 2 million number of a specimen. Then there's a number of regional centers of the DSI. You can see here there's the central circles. So these all are have a number of a herbarium record that documenting the India's flora, and that help to government to identify which species need the conservation strategies to plan. So this herbarium, important herbarium of all that documenting the biodiversity as a help in the taxonomic research in India, in which the largest one is the Central National Herbarium that present in the Howrah. You can see a number of plant species that you can see. These are the stored houses that is stored in the either wooden storehouse or in the steel. You can see these are the pigeonholes that is storing the herbarium specimens. This one is the different regions like Botanical Survey of India in Shillong, Coimbatore, Pune. These are the different centers of the herbarium, like Botanical Survey of Dehradun, like Botanical Survey of Allahabad. These are the some centers like Policy Institute, Dehradun, then National Botanical Research Institute, Lucknow, Tropical Botanical Garden and Research Institute, Trivandrum. These all are having the different, showing the different herbarium that present in India. So in conclusion, we can say that the herbarium is an indispensable resource for studying and conserving the world plant diversity, and it bridges the past, present and future of botany, offering invaluable data of taxonomic research, biodiversity conservation, climate change studies and educational purposes. And to ensure their continued relevance, herbarium must embrace modern technologies like digitization and genomic research.
So in conclusion, we can say that the herbarium is an indispensable resource for studying and conserving the world plant diversity. It bridges the past, present and future of botany and offering invaluable data for taxonomic research, biodiversity conservation and climate change studies and educational purposes. So to ensure their continued relevance, herbarium must embrace modern technologies like digitalization and genomic research. So we have to focus on these particular aspects of the herbarium. That's all for the today's class. Thank you for patiently hearing me. Thank you all for joining this session.